time for questions.
Thank you very much, Gopan. That's like a master's in cybersecurity in 20 minutes. So I can imagine what is going through a lot of the guys in the room, but a lot of interesting information. First I must confess I didn't know Secureworks was initially Dell Secureworks. That's an interesting thing that I picked today, but that's excellent. Then 78 security tools in an organization. Is that for real?
Yeah, it is. I mean, the amount of I've seen people using 4 antivirus, right, in a same organization. So I was talking to somebody in our region literally yesterday who has got 4 AVs, right? So and I'm sure many people on this call would be able to relate to me on this. So yeah.
My goodness, it can get overwhelming. I would imagine. So guys, we are now at Q&A, and please feel free to drop your questions on the Q&A tab. Pramod, you can also just come on camera so that we can also have you there. So maybe I can go first. So are you saying that we should basically throw away the investment we've made in a SIEM and run to XDR?
So Harry, in my view, I hate to say it depends. Okay, but as if I go back to that previous slide which I showed, this slide. Okay, as long as the requirements are standard from a threat detection perspective, your focus is threat detection, XDR could replace a SIEM. XDR, you don't need a SIEM anymore. You need XDR could replace a SIEM. I would put it in that way.
Pramod, do you have anything to add on to that?
I echo what Gopan is saying. I think gone are the days where you're going to be looking at security as a compliance tick mark versus looking at real threat challenges that organizations are facing today. So I think that mindset is very important. And I think it starts right from the top, from the board, for example, to say, hey, this is going to be a boardroom topic every day, or in every executive committee. And we need to know how secured we are, right? There is also a brand value, as you see, which is attached to every damage that could cause from security. So I echo what Gopan is saying, and XDR would definitely suffice from looking at a strong security platform for any organization.
Interesting. So Mesfin is asking, is it possible to judge the security posture of an organization using SIEM?
So when you say security posture, so that includes, because today I was talking more from a SOC perspective, security monitoring side of things, right? Now that security posture includes lots of other areas. So as simple as things like, for example, how often do you evaluate your vendors? Right. So recently you would have seen this SolarWinds attack, right? So which is all over the place on the media. Now you need to make sure that you are the kind of people whom you are talking to, even they are secure, right? So this could be your vendors, this could be your partners, this could be your whoever whom you have associations with. I'm just one example which I said. Okay, there could be situations when your IT team is purchasing a new cloud tool. Okay, now, is there a governance in place where an IT would come back to security and say that I'm doing this tool now? What are these specific controls or governance? Is there an approval process internally, right? Now that's a huge subject, right, Harry? I mean, to answer that question, I mean, there is things like security maturity. There is things like where you can look at different domains, right? How good you are at your threat intelligence, how good you are at with your incident response. I mentioned earlier how good you are with your SOC. SOC is one part of the puzzle, very, very important. Don't get me wrong. But there are lots of other areas also around this. That would be my view on this.
I just wanted to add what Gopan said. So I think to be able to today sit and immediately know how good are we in our security practices, might be difficult. It's not an easy question to answer. It's people, process, technology, a combination of all those. What I would strongly recommend to organizations is to start and probably work with a leading security organization who understands, the nitty-gritties of security and do a maturity model. So one of the two key areas or benefits that an organization gets by doing a security maturity model is A, they know where they are, first of all. B, it will evaluate where they want to get to, and at least define a path to say, what is that as an organization and people I'll have to do to get from this point to where I want to be. That's the first. The second benefit that you get by doing that is you get benchmarked. Today, you might be sitting in a shell and say, hey, you know what? Until an attack happens, I don't have to worry about it. But I think what's important also is to be able to benchmark yourselves with the other industry leaders. It could be a financial space, it could be government, it could be retail, irrespective of the vertical. So these are two key outcomes that you get. And that's why I strongly recommend security maturity model exercise to be done by organizations periodically.
So how would you suggest? So is it something that you do annually, you do biannually, you do quarterly? How do you do the modeling? And after what period? And what are the things that people need to look out for?
See, initially you basically engage an organization who will come and have discussions with your security and business, understand your priorities, understand your current IT landscape, and chalk out a plan for you, right? Now, once you largely put a framework in place, it will also take into consideration the existing investments that you have made, the investments that you want to make in the next financial year, the tools that you currently have, the appetite to be able to bring in, manage multiple vendors. So a SMM model, as we call it, actually takes a very comprehensive approach to this. Once that is in place, then quarterly you put executive review, right, with key stakeholders and say, are we on target and are we actually walking the path? And many times, there could be a lot of changes, regulatory and business-wise, that might have pushed you to be able to basically take a deviation from what you have initially set forth. And that's absolutely fine. So then you go and redefine it based on the path and move ahead. So that's typically how you bring in a security maturity model in place, and then you navigate through the journey.
Okay. So this this space is changing very rapidly, and looking at from SOC, SIEM, XDR, now XDR. How do you propose people should approach orchestration?
Yeah, that's a good one. So orchestration, again, in the industry, there are lots of tools available. Everybody say like, hey, we've got a silver bullet for orchestration. I don't like that approach. I like one statement which Bill Gates made recently last year, I think, where he said like, if something is working really well, you apply automation or orchestration to it, it will get better. Okay. Now imagine if something is working bad and you apply automation or orchestration on that, that'll be disaster. Right. Mm-hmm. So you need to make sure that you sort your things, sort your internal playbooks, and approach orchestration less as a tool and more as a consultative way of looking at orchestration. Right. So I would put orchestration as first you sort your SOC and things like playbooks and all that. I've got very, very mature clients. I've got a bank in Middle East whom I first met in 2014, and they are still a really, really good client of Secureworks. And they took steps one step at a time, right? So to Pramod's earlier point on the maturity, they understand now on where they used to be in 2014, April or May when I first met them versus where they are now. right? In terms of these steps they improved, and they got orchestration now in place. But before that, they had to go through various phases, right? So how good your playbooks are? Have you got your playbooks defined properly? Okay, it's there is some serious amount of work to be done before you deploy a tool. That's my view on orchestration.
Pramod, do you have any additional comments?
Yeah, I largely agree with Gopan, because I think, frankly, it is still orchestration by itself is still in a very embryonic stage. It is evolving, and it's got to evolve, both from understanding, how do you basically orchestrate to remediate a particular attack, understanding the tools better. So I think you'll have. It's still in an embryonic stage. People are talking about it, far from reality. And we are currently working with some large financial institutions across 9 countries in Africa. And I think, these were questions that actually came up to us initially in our discussions. But I think sooner or later, they understood that they'll have to take it in a phased manner, not get too very excited on day one, ensure that you have a strong foundation in place, and then grow from there.
Interesting question from Charles here. Charles Karuga, he's asking, what magic can be used to organizations that find it hard to finance / approve budgets for security? Do you have a magic potion, perhaps?
I don't. Pramod has. I'll let Pramod answer that.
No, it's an interesting question, and it always comes up, and it's also one which has got to be tapped. So one of my, something that we have seen that we have done with organizations is to be creating a business case, right? And in that business case, there are going to be the tangible, the measurable ones, and there are going to be the intangibles. The intangibles are, very obvious, right? For example, what happens to customer experience if there is an attack and systems are down? What happens to my brand value? If people today, a large set of customers, especially in the financial side, it's a big trust factor of having your investments in a bank if there is going to be attacks and breaches, right? And to recover as well takes a long time. That's on the intangible. On the tangible piece, I would say, try and tabulate today the investments that are actually going and the benefits that you're able to get. For example, we did an exercise where there could be a 35% productivity, and I'm talking this about the Kenya market, 35% productivity benefit, right? In terms of the number of people used, multiplied by the number of hours they actually spent in looking at just going through phenomenal amounts and thousands of alerts that were generated by the SIEM, right? So productivity is something that can be tabulated as a return on investment to justify the kind of investments that you're making for a tool or a service. The second element will be to bring together, for example, if you take XDR, it basically hits all the 3 large areas: network, endpoint, and cloud, right? So if you take, for example, a per license cost of an XDR platform and try and do your math on what it would take for you to put up separate solutions each to cover your endpoints, network, and cloud, I think there itself will be a big answer. The third major part is about maintaining the existing tools. So I think if you tabulate and say, what is your annual expenditure on maintenance of each of these tools, right? Once you have all of that and you make a comparison and probably go and pitch saying that this is the X that we are spending in maintaining a tool and a technology with not a lot of benefits like a SIEM, which is a 5-year-old, versus an MDR service or an XDR platform, I'm sure it's going to be extremely well received by the board.
Excellent. So I'm very aware of our time. So we are about 3:56. So I want to just say, because I can see questions are still coming in. So we will stretch by probably about another 10 minutes. So just bear with us so that we can go through all the questions and make sure that we've answered those and everybody's happy. So maybe another thing to Charles, there's also the trick of I don't know whether it's magic, but there's a trick of treating security as a risk discussion and not just security, because a lot of businesses, especially CEOs and CFOs, understand what risk is. But sometimes when you go to them with cybersecurity, they may not understand. So you might want to also vary the language in order to get people to listen to you. But there's Anthony, and Anthony is asking, does the XDR solution pick unauthorized user activities in systems? For instance, limit enhancements, etc.
Yep, I'll take that. Thanks, Anthony. Good question. So so again, I would put it in a different way. So I'll tell an example. So if a particular user is clicking on a Word document with macro enabled on it at 2 a.m. in the morning on a Friday, and this document is communicating to a country, say Ukraine or China or wherever you are, which is where you don't do business with as an end user. So there are three conditions happening. So condition one, somebody clicking on a document with macro. Condition number two, he's doing this at non-office hours, 2 a.m. in the morning. And third is it is communicating to a country where you don't do business with, right? Now, individually, if you look at these three conditions, are they malicious? No. But are they suspicious? Probably yes, right? So why should somebody do that at 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning? Now, there is a baseline which we create on what is an expected behavior on a end user. So for example, if you have 1,000 endpoints, what is a typical behavior which you see from your organization, from your users? And there is a learning curve there, right? The moment you see a deviation from that particular behavior, that will raise an alert. Any good XDR solution, now these alerts could be raised from your proxy, this could be raised from your endpoint. So I can go on different other examples also. Other example could be the failed login attempts, right? So number of times a person tried to attempt on different systems within your organization before he managed to get inside. It's a very old use case, okay? But can you correlate between all your different systems? Within a particular whatever time window, 4 hours or something, that will create an alert. We'll look at log on and log off times. So you have if you're a organization, and I mean your organization would have a typical login time and a log off time. People come in at between 8 a.m. to 8:45 a.m. Let's say that, and they log off during lunchtime, say 1 p.m. or between 1 and 2, and then they log in back after that, and then they log off around 5:30 to 6 p.m. That's a standard login log off time. Now, if you see a variation from that, that will raise an alert. Now, this alert may be critical, this may be medium, this may be low, depending on the severity, depending on the confidence level. There are mechanisms how we do that. We can get into discussions on that. But and this could be the question which you asked about the privilege escalation. Very good point, right? If somebody is got inside the network, he's doing some lateral movement, we are seeing some escalation of the privilege. That is again a behavior. So I said a long answer, but short answer is yes, it can detect. That's my short answer.
Okay, great. So Javan is asking, where does the resilience of the entire cybersecurity pronounced in the model? I think he's talking about the maturity model. So where does the resilience of the entire cybersecurity pronounced in the model?
Yeah, I'll take probably the first part and then I'll leave it to Pramod. So again, really good question, Javan. The resilience is something which we haven't discussed. So resilience would attach, especially it is so valid, right? So for example, things like ransomware attack. Okay, let's assume that. Let's hope that won't happen. But let's assume that there is no backup, no recovery, nothing, and then you have a huge ransomware attack and everything is encrypted. Okay, they're asking for you to pay whatever thousands of dollars. No choice. I mean, you have to pay that ransom, or you have to have some sort of a cyber resilience. That's where resilience plays a huge role, right? Now, Secureworks do not have a solution on cyber resilience, but there are lots of solutions available there which would do cyber recovery and those kind of things. But it is definitely an important component. If there is no investment made on that, that is definitely important component. I'll pass it to Pramod on the maturity side of things.
No, so I mean, you're bang on cyber resilience, and see, there are two aspects to this, right? One is the proactive of what we can do today. We can't control what threat actors do, and the second bit, which is reactive, right? So I think security maturity model, having a plan in place, ensuring it's almost like digital transformation. People are talking about it. Even from a security standpoint, that transformation needs to happen. So the maturity model will basically ensure that you have a plan in place. There is some method to madness. You know what you're going to do. At least you have some plans in place, tools, technologies, people, trained them adequately enough to be able to handle incident responses, or choose an organization who can basically come in only for IR related work. So the maturity model is more to have a plan and execute it. And what Gopan mentioned is how you basically handle cyber resilience.
Excellent, excellent. Mesfin, again, with another question. Is it possible to separate fine grain, in brackets, events or alerts that are generated from any device configured to send logs?
I didn't probably capture it in a proper way, but so we will absolutely be able to understand which of the log sources are sending logs and alerts. Okay, we should be able to even get into a mode. I showed you the telemetry thing, if you remember. So it need not even generate a log, right? So we can still collect telemetry. So it's all about how powerful your EDR is. So the endpoint detection and response tool, how powerful it is. That's how you can get into any level of details. So, and we've got an extremely powerful EDR, which we use for threat hunting.
Okay. I see I think we've answered all the questions, and I am just looking again to make sure that we haven't left out anyone. I think we have answered all the questions. Unless there's anybody else with a question, which you can type very quickly in the next 1 second. But otherwise, this has been a really, really interesting session. 1 hour is never enough to discuss security, especially at this level. But we managed to cover quite some content there, and I want to actually end this by giving each of you, let's say Gopan and Pramod, I want to give you 1 minute to just give us your parting shot before we end this session. Maybe we start with the Pramod.
Yeah, sure. So, so first of all, thanks for everyone, for making it a very lively session by being very participative. It's a pleasure to have, spoken to each one of you. So one of the things that I would want to, finally say is that I think security needs to be looked at as a strategic and an integral part of an organization's transformation. It's important to calibrate where you are as an organization in that journey and the maturity, and then take comprehensive approaches to ensure that you have the right tools, technology, people in place. And if you believe that it's not your forte and you want to focus more on your business, then look at the right managed security services partner who understands what it is to be able to provide the right set of services with SLAs.
Gopan?
Yeah, so for me, I would kind of repeat what I said about that bank in the region. So don't try to boil the ocean. Try to take measurable steps, right? So where do you stand today? Because security, unfortunately, there is no end date to security. I cannot say that, yes, I'm secure now, right? The goalposts keep moving, which is very difficult. So, and we need to protect every areas, and somebody else need to just get one loophole, right? So that's a massive difference. So have some measurable targets and get knock them over. And when you're trying to get a solution, whether it is a technology or partners or whatever, don't look at that as vendors. Instead, look at that as partners. So partner with people who will be on your side. It's good versus bad, right? So be on your side on that journey. I would really advise to look at it from that angle.
Excellent. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you, Pramod. Thank you, Gopan. Thank you to Aptiva and Secureworks for sponsoring this session. We truly appreciate. Without your support, these events never happen. So we appreciate and want to say thank you again.
We would want to remind the entire CIO EA team. I think what you guys have been doing in that market is wonderful. So keep up the good show, Harry, and the entire team at CIO. This has been a wonderful webinar.
Thank you. So before we finish, I want to remind everyone that Cloud and Security Cloud and Security Summit is coming up. That's 18th and 19th of March. Make sure you register. So book your ticket, book your seat as well. It's going to be another virtual event, but you know how our virtual events have become really tech. So we're looking forward for that. So don't forget to register for that event. And without any further ado, I want to end this session and say, have a good afternoon, good evening, but please try and be secure. Please reach out to Gopan, reach out to Pramod should you need to speak to them, or reach out to any of our teams in CIO East Africa, and they'll be able to connect you to them. So thank you very much and have a good evening.